Hey, this is Matt Urtz, the Madison County Historian. We are still working to record and document how the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic is impacting businesses, people, and organizations. We are today talking to Supreme Court Justice Donald F. Cerio. Judge Cerio, thank you for being here today.
Thank you very much, man.
So for those that aren't familiar, kind of explain what a Supreme Court Justice does kind of versus like a county court justice.
Well, the Supreme Court is actually a court of general jurisdiction, and we have over-encompassing jurisdiction, unlike county court. County court is somewhat limited. We have concurrent jurisdiction with county court, but then we also handle matters that county court could not generally handle, such as primarily the civil matters. Commonly, we refer to those as, matrimonial actions, contract actions, real property actions, things of that nature. However, we do have concurrent jurisdiction with county court with respect to criminal matters. So just a few minutes ago, I sentenced a young fellow on a drug case, not unlike what county court would do. So it's a general jurisdictional court, which covers the panoply of matters which may come before a court.
Okay, so talk about COVID-19 starts to kind of appear on everybody's radar. Mid-March, the state announces that everyone's going halftime, and then I think around March 20th we close. Talk a little bit about how the court initially reacted.
Well, it was kind of an interesting situation. Just to speak a little more personally, I had a son who was in Florence, Italy at the time. So I was much more aware of what was transpiring with respect to what was occurring in Europe, with a full expectation that this was going to find its way to the United States. It was just a matter of when. So we ended up actually getting my son back on March 18th. He flew out of Rome on the very last flight at the time of the lockdown, and we were able to eventually get him back to New York State. But the court system was very, very aware, very mindful of what was transpiring. And because this was such a unique set of circumstances, to a great extent, we were a little concerned as to how to proceed. But as this pandemic flared up, it quickly became apparent that we could no longer operate as we typically had. So we basically shut down. We ended up working from home to a great extent. I spent a lot of time on the phone, trying to speak with attorneys to get matters resolved as well as we could. And those were primarily civil matters, the matrimonials, things of that nature, trying to get those resolved. So to a great extent, we just ground to a halt, and there was nothing that we were doing in the courthouse. The county court folks, as far as criminal cases, weren't really handling those at all. There were arraignments, but that was the extent of it.
So have you kind of gotten back to some level of normalcy, or are you still kind of on the pause?
Well, we're probably pause plus one, to be honest with you. We are permitted now here on July 24th to actually conduct proceedings in the courtroom. We have to maintain social distancing. There's a limit on the number of people who can be present in the courtroom. Everybody has to wear a mask throughout the proceedings. We have been granted permission to proceed with non-jury matters, such as the civil cases, if they choose to proceed in a non-jury fashion. If anyone wants a jury trial, the likelihood, at least from my perspective, is that we won't be doing that until well into the future. I would dare say probably sometime next year, to be frank, especially with the criminal cases. So we are moving forward. We have agreed amongst the judges, the three of us, to only handle 2 criminal cases in the morning and 2 criminal cases in the afternoon to ensure the safety of persons throughout the courthouse. And as far as the civil cases, we try to maintain a significant time differential between their appearances so that we can make sure the courtroom is properly sanitized, the clerks are wiping down the tables, and we're making sure everything's cleaned before new people come in. And we're trying to do, still to a great extent, Skype proceedings and telephonic conferences to minimize the number of people coming into the courthouse. So it's not back to normal, but we're at least moving in that direction.
Have you found that folks that are taking part in court proceedings, attorneys and such, are happier doing the digital type stuff because it kind of saves them some travel?
Well, to a great extent. I mean, there's a number of attorneys that I work with who are from throughout the state. They could be downstate. I was speaking with an attorney from Comac just the other day. You know, we have attorneys from Long Island, Buffalo Way, Binghamton, Rochester. I think they're very happy if we can resolve matters by Skype or phone. It does save them an appreciable amount of travel time. And, you know, to be frank with you, you know, everybody I think is still a little apprehensive. You know, you come into a facility, you don't know what you're going to be leaving with, and then potentially exposing your family and friends to. So if we can minimize still an appearance here in the courthouse, we'll do that.
Have you found that you've adapted to the technology quickly, or is it something that I know a lot of folks are very frustrated by technology right now?
Well, you know, I'm not a youngster, and so I'm kind of the old dog in the courthouse, to be frank with you. I think I've got the most amount of time of anybody here. I'm in my 37th year here in the courthouse, but I've been able to adapt and move forward with it. Every now and then, you know, you'll have some glitches, but we try to overcome them, and I think to a great extent, people are willing to recognize and accommodate those potential technological issues that arise. So, you know, we'll have our hiccup, but we're usually able to overcome that.
Going back a step real quick, have you found that folks that could be standing trial, for example, is there a fear of kind of the fear, the fair and speedy trial? Is there any fear of that, or is this basically a statewide thing and they just kind of have to deal with it?
Yeah, it is a statewide prohibition right now. There was a tolling, as it were, a suspension of the statute of limitations on cases, the requirements with regards to speedy trial during the course of all of this, because you just necessarily could not show up in court to proceed in any substantive fashion. So in order to address the people's interests in ensuring the proper adjudication of criminal matters, for example, there was that tolling or suspension. On the other hand, we were also very mindful of what was occurring with people who may be incarcerated. In light of the new bail law that came into effect, and given these present circumstances, I think the judges have taken a very affirmative sort of posture to ensure that people who do not necessarily need to be in jail are not in jail, so that we're not keeping them housed for an inordinate period of time, because right now I couldn't tell you when we're going to be actually having a criminal jury trial.
What is the courtroom like? So if you have a proceeding, who's in there, who may have been in there before COVID that's not in there now? And do you think it'll change moving forward?
Well, you know, the only real significant difference is you know, obviously the number of persons who are present in the courtroom. You know, you don't have spectators who are present for any of these proceedings. I had sentenced a woman here not too long ago to a state prison term, and given the constraints, she was only able to bring 2 family members with her to the proceeding. She had wanted to bring a significantly larger number than that, but unfortunately we couldn't do that, so we had to incorporate the technology as well, and we allowed the family members who could not appear in court to access all the proceedings by way of Skype, so they could at least be present, as it were, virtually for those particular proceedings. So as far as the changes of personnel, you know, as I said, it's limited. That's the significant difference, is that we just reduced substantially the number of persons present in the courtroom.
Do you feel like I know you said you're the guy who's been around for a while. Do you feel like this is going to change how court proceedings, even if they came out with a vaccine that worked tomorrow, do you feel like this will change how courts do business moving forward?
Yeah, I think it will. I think going forward, we're going to have to incorporate more of this technology. I think it's appropriate. There's been days when I would find myself traveling to, whether it's Buffalo or Binghamton or Elmira, Cooperstown to handle a fairly short criminal proceeding, but I had to be present in the courtroom. Now perhaps we can, more prudent ways to just handle it by a Skype proceeding. Uh, you can get people, minimize their amount of travel time, inconvenience. If you have somebody who's got to travel 2 hours to get to the courthouse for a 10-minute proceeding, you've burned up 4 hours of their day, which doesn't seem to be a real prudent exercise and use of time. Uh, we all know that time's a very uh, fleeting commodity. So if we can minimize that, that's helpful, and use some of this technology. So I think going forward, we're going to probably implement that on a greater scale.
Is there anything else you'd like to say to folks about what's going on and uh, what's the court system's doing?
Well, I think the court system, Judge DiFiore, our chief judge, the governor, Governor Cuomo, the chief administrative judge, Judge Marks. I think they've all been very conscientious, very aware of our circumstances, and very diligent in their efforts to ensure that the rights of not only criminal defendants but the rights of civil litigants and the rights of the people are properly honored throughout this process, and balancing that against the safety of everybody. And I think they've taken very legitimate, regimented steps in moving forward to try to ensure the safety, while also trying to make sure that this court system operates on an efficient basis, addressing the needs of litigants who come before us.
Thank you for taking the time to talk to us today, Judge Cerio. I greatly appreciate it. And we hopefully won't have to talk to you again. We'll get a cure and be on the move, but maybe down the road, if this continues, we'll dial up again and see how you're doing in a few months.
I would look forward to that, Matt. Thank you so very much for the time.
All right. We will talk to you soon.
All right. Be well.
Bye now.